I recognize a few of these letters, but it's so vastly different than the printed text.
Yeah. Language models are wild.
Wild.
Yeah.
The whole thing is wild that people figured out how to associate sounds with little symbols.
Joe Rogan put a centuries-old letter back in the public eye when he asked about the Letter of Lentulus. That short document offers a simple physical portrait of Jesus and helped shape many paintings and prints.
This is a field called textual criticism, where we do this with all ancient documents. Like the Bible is a more kind of fleshed out field of textual criticism because we have so many manuscripts.
People often repeat its lines online without tracing where they came from. We will follow the letter from medieval manuscript copies into early printed books, read the text itself, and outline why scholars reject it as an eyewitness report. But if the letter shaped how the world imagined Jesus, why do scholars now doubt its truth? Could its origins hide something far stranger than anyone expected? Where the letter came from. The Letter of Lentulus began to appear in printed books during the years when Europe changed how it shared words. Printers in Florence set the letter beside humanist texts around 1460, and that made the short report familiar to readers who collected new books. A later German edition included the letter in a Life of Christ printed in Cologne in 1474. Another early printing placed the text in a German volume from Nuremberg in 1491. These early prints helped the letter move from a few scattered manuscripts into books that many readers could own. A story tied to the letter says a member of the Colonna family named Giacomo found a copy in Constantinople and sent it to Rome in 1421. That tale appears in a Jena manuscript and helped later readers believe the text was old and important. Over time, the letter passed through Greek and Latin hands and reached Western Europe as a short devotional text. Translators and copyists adapted words and small phrases to match local styles. The result was not one fixed version, but a family of related texts defined by different readers. By the late 15th and 16th centuries, the letter sat inside many printed devotional collections. Printers and booksellers found that readers wanted clear, short portraits of holy figures. The Lentulus text fit that demand because it offered a simple physical description and a tone that suited prayer books and small picture folios. Collectors and scholars in Germany, France, and Italy kept copies in private libraries. Over time, readers noticed differences in the versions and recorded those differences in library files and catalogs. Ernst von Dobschutz later studied surviving copies and counted more than 75 variants across Germany, France, and Italy. His work showed that copyists changed small details such as hair color and beard shape. An 18th-century librarian at Jena named Christopher Milius recorded a tale that a now-lost copy had been written in gold on red paper, though later scholars treated that claim with doubt. The arrival of printing meant booksellers in Florence, Cologne, and Nuremberg could sell the letter far beyond local readers to distant markets and readers. The first widely available English edition that used the name Publius Lentulus was printed in London in 1680. That English form made the letter familiar to readers in Britain and its colonies. Preachers and devotional writers sometimes quoted passages from the letter as if it were an eyewitness report rather than a later devotional text. Quoting the letter in sermons and private devotional guides helped the image it described reach people who had little access to older manuscripts. The manuscript pattern points to a slow development rather than a single original document. Copies appear in Florentine miscellanies, German devotional books, and Latin collections. Translators moved the text between Greek and Latin and then into modern tongues. When printers set the letter in type, it reached a wider public, and artists and patrons found a simple face to copy. The way the text changed across places shows how scribes and printers adjusted it to fit local readers. The history of the letter shows how a short text can travel and change across centuries. From a Florentine press to a London printing press, the Letter of Lentulus passed through hands that copied, translated, and reshaped it. The paper trail charts book culture in Europe, where collectors, printers, and readers moved words along trade routes and library shelves. Those movements made the Lentulus text familiar across many places and left the variants that later scholars would study and count. But after centuries of retelling, distortion, and devotion, one question remains. What did the mysterious letter actually reveal about Jesus himself? What the letter actually says. What does the Letter of Lentulus say about the man called Jesus? The short report opens by noting that many people call him a prophet, while others call him the Son of God. It states that he healed the sick and that crowds followed him. After these claims, the writer gives a direct physical portrait. Height is the first feature the writer mentions. He describes the man as of medium stature. The phrase means a person not very tall and not very short. The account then focuses on the head and hair. The hair is described as hazel or reddish-brown. It falls straight to the ears and then becomes wavy and curled below the ears. The hair reaches the shoulders and is parted in the middle. Several versions add that the hair has a slight sheen that catches the eye. The brow is smooth, and the face shows no deep lines or marks. The complexion is given a warm tone without blemish. The nose and mouth are said to be well-formed. The beard is full and of the same color as the hair. Some copies say the beard is split at the chin, while others simply call it full and neat. The eyes are named gray or blue and are described as bright. A repeated phrase in several manuscripts says the look could make people feel respect and fear at the same time. The description covers hands and posture as well. The hands and arms are said to be well-shaped and useful for work. The posture is upright. The movement and gestures show firmness and gentleness together. The voice is described as modest and clear. The man rarely laughed, the text notes, but he could show deep feelings, and sometimes he wept. Short moral comments appear in many versions. One common line says he was severe in rebuke and gentle in warning. Another line calls his aspect venerable, so people felt reverence. These brief moral details link physical traits to character and give the portrait a devotional tone. Translators and copyists changed small words as the text moved from place to place. An English form made in the late 17th century uses older English style and phrases. Latin and Greek forms show echoes of older Christian writers who wrote short notes about holy faces. Writers such as Nicephorus and John of Damascus recorded brief physical remarks that resemble parts of the Lentulus description. That overlap suggests the letter drew on existing devotional language when it was copied. Scribes and printers adjusted details to fit local taste. Some manuscripts soften the hair color to brown, while others keep the hazel tone. Some copies name the eyes as bright without a color. Printers in Florence might prefer gentler words, while German presses chose more direct terms. These small edits multiplied as the text spread and explain why many slightly different forms survive. The letter does not give long stories or new events. It offers a fixed image rather than a biography. That compact portrait made the text useful for artists and printers who needed a clear face to show in pictures and in small devotional booklets. Artists could take the short list of features and create a face that fits readers' expectations. Across the surviving copies, a clear core of features remains: medium height, hair to the shoulders parted in the middle, a full beard, bright eyes, a calm posture, and a sober voice. Minor details vary, but the main image stays the same in Greek, Latin, and later English forms. The result is a short, repeatable portrait that moved easily from text into image and helped shape many later faces of Jesus in art and print. Many printed copies included a woodcut or engraving next to the text. Printers used images that matched the short description. Later, English preachers and devotional writers sometimes read passages aloud in sermons or family devotions. That oral use helped the description become familiar beyond book readers. Over time, the short portrait passed into paintings, statues, and prints, where woodcut artists followed the words and gave the letter a visual form that matched its phrases. But if this letter shaped how millions imagined the face of Jesus, what if the very image we've trusted for centuries was born from a lie? Why scholars say it is not real? Why do historians reject the Letter of Lentulus as a genuine Roman report? The answer rests on several clear lines of evidence. These include the absence of the claimed official in Roman records, the tone and language of the text, the manuscript and printing history, echoes of other church writings, the lack of early references, and signs of copying and editing by later hands. First, the name and office in the letter do not match what we know about Roman rule in Judea. Official lists, inscriptions, and historical records show the men who governed the province in the early 1st century. Names such as Coponius, Marcus Ambivulus, Annius Rufus, Valerius Gratus, and Pontius Pilate appear in those rolls. The surname Lentulus belongs to a known Roman family, the Cornelii Lentuli, but historians find no reliable evidence that Publius Lentulus served as governor or procurator of Judea. That gap in the official record makes the basic claim of an eyewitness report hard to accept. Second, the language and tone of the letter do not match formal Roman communication. The text reads more like devotional Christian writing than like a dry official notice. It uses phrases and verbal turns common in later Christian books and in worship. Words such as Son of God and Prophet appear in ways that reflect faith language rather than civic reporting. Formal Roman letters normally follow set formulas, list official titles, and keep a factual, legal tone. The moral comments and warm descriptors in the Lentulus text fit a devotional style more than an administrative form. Third, the manuscript and printing record point to a later origin and to steady change over time. The letter survives mainly in medieval manuscripts and in printed collections from the 15th century onwards. Scholars who examined these copies found many variant readings. Ernst von Dobschütz catalogued dozens of versions and showed how copyists and early printers altered small details. For example, changing hair color or a short descriptive phrase. The pattern of many different late copies fits how devotional texts developed and spread in the Middle Ages and early modern period, not how a single early official report would survive. Fourth, parts of the wording echo descriptions already known in Eastern Christian writings. Authors such as Nicephorus and John of Damascus included short remarks about the appearance of holy figures in their works. The Lentulus text shares tone and some expressions with that Eastern devotional tradition. That overlap suggests that editors or copyists drew on existing church images and phrases when shaping the letter for Greek and Latin readers. Such borrowing points to transmission inside church culture rather than to an independent Roman source. Fifth, early church historians and writers do not preserve any direct knowledge of a Roman eyewitness report like the Letter of Lentulus. If a named Roman official had sent a formal account describing Jesus in detail, early historians and theologians would likely have known and cited it. The silence of early sources is therefore an important negative point. Scholars weigh that absence heavily when judging the text's claim of a 1st century origin. Sixth, the ways the letter was copied and used show clear signs of editorial shaping for devotional purposes. Many surviving versions add short moral lines that tie physical traits to character. Printers in Florence, Cologne, and Nuremberg adjusted words and layout for their readers. 17th century English translators rendered phrases into an older English style so the text felt familiar to their audience. These changes show the letter functioned as devotional material and was shaped by local taste and by market demand. Some 19th and 20th century scholars sat together and discussed the origin. Friedrich Munter argued for a more remote route, but that view did not win broad support. Later researchers, such as Cora E. Lutz, analyzed printed collections and argued that the form of the letter fits a medieval devotional product. Standard reference works long listed the Letter of Lentulus as spurious. For these reasons, libraries, museums, and historians list the Letter of Lentulus as a later devotional composition, important for the study of art and piety, but not accepted as an eyewitness report from the 1st century. But if scholars dismissed it as fiction, why did its image continue to shape how millions imagined Christ for centuries? Why it mattered then, and why people still talk about it now. The Letter of Lentulus mattered because it gave a clear, repeatable face at a time when books and images reached many people. Printers put the short description into small devotional books and picture collections. Woodcuts and copper engravings often stood next to the printed text, so readers could see a matching image. That pairing helped a single portrait type spread quickly across towns and regions. Artists in Northern Europe used the letter as a simple model. Painters such as Dirk Bouts worked in a culture where clients asked for familiar faces. Bouts and other Low Countries painters followed a steady type: hair parted in the middle, shoulder-length hair, a short, full beard, and a calm look. Workshops trained apprentices to copy patterns that patrons liked. A standard face made it easy for workshops to produce altars, panels, and small private portraits without chances for great change. Patrons determined what painters made. Town councils, guilds, and private donors ordered images for churches and homes. They often asked for a face that the congregation would recognize. The Lentulus description gave a compact recipe that satisfied artists and buyers. Printers and booksellers used the text to sell copies. Printers in Florence, Cologne, and Nuremberg included the letter in small sets of devotional plates that traveled by trade routes to distant towns. Museum curators and book historians find traces of that movement in collections. Printed editions with a small image next to the text survive in many libraries. When curators write catalog notes, they show how printed descriptions helped fix a portrait type in visual culture. That link appears in several museum collections where a print or a small panel carries the same facial features that the letter lists. The text also moved between East and West. Writers in the Greek tradition had short remarks about holy faces that echo some points in the Lentulus text. Translators and copyists mixed those Eastern notes with Western devotional phrases. Over time, the mixed tradition produced many related versions of the letter in Latin, German, French, and English. Each language form carried small local edits that fit the taste of readers in that area. Printers and copyists did not only reproduce words, they also adjusted a few details. A Florentine press might choose softer color words. A German printer might prefer direct language that matched local speech. These small edits show how the letter adapted to readers as it spread. The result is many near-identical copies that show local variation while keeping the core portrait. Books helped art by putting a fixed list of features into circulation. Painters could read the short lines and make a face that fit. Woodcut artists copied woodblocks and plates that moved from shop to shop. When an image matched the text, buyers felt confident that the picture was the right one. That practical link between text and picture made the Lentulus portrait useful for craftsmen and sellers. The letter also had a role in private devotion and public speech. Family readings and sermons sometimes quoted the short description. That practice meant the portrait moved from book pages into daily life. When preachers read the words in town squares or in parish churches, the image reached people who never owned books. This oral use extended the letter's reach beyond readers to listeners. Modern media revived public interest. When a widely followed show speaks about old texts, many listeners search for and share images. Joe Rogan mentioned the letter in a conversation that led to renewed public questions. Public curiosity pushed librarians and scholars to post clear evidence, museum pages, and short articles that explain the letter's origin and how it spread. Library and museum responses aimed to show what is known and what is not. A close look at the record shows the letter worked as a social tool. It met a demand for a stable visual model. Printers, artists, patrons, and preachers all used it because it was brief and serviceable. That practical value explains why a later text could shape centuries of images. The letter became part of the routine of art-making and book culture in Europe, not because it came from an eyewitness, but because it fit the needs of people who made and bought images. Today, the letter remains a subject of interest because it shows how words move into pictures and how print culture depicts visual habits. Scholars study the variants and trace how local presses changed some words in the letter. Museum records keep examples that show the same face across media. Researchers continue to compare copies and images to map the exact paths that the description followed across Europe and into print in detail. The Letter of Lentulus may never prove who wrote it, but its words still determine how people picture Jesus today. From dusty monasteries to Joe Rogan's podcast, this old text keeps finding new life. Its mystery is what makes it last, as everyone wants to know where truth meets tradition. What do you think about its story? Could there be more to it than we know? Share your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the journey, and do not forget to subscribe for more stories.